Hey everyone, my name is Brian Howard. I'm a Calgary realtor who has sold an average of a house a week since moving to this great city in 2003. And this is Calgary Living, Real Estate and Lifestyle. I'm interviewing Calgary's top performers as it relates to living and lifestyle in our great city. Some of the podcasts will be real estate decision specific, but most will be about life in Calgary and why we choose to live here, or at least why you should visit. Thanks for tuning in. Well, folks, welcome to another edition of what's this podcast called? Calgary Living, Real Estate and Lifestyle. I'm your host, and my name is Brian Howard. And today I have the fortuitous privilege, I believe, of having Alan Grant on the show. Alan was recently introduced to me by my old friend, Harold, and Alan has a business and is a Calgary liver, I guess. And his business called Action Edge Business. Alan, welcome to the show. Looking forward to hearing a little bit about your Calgary life and Calgary living experience.
Excellent. Yep. The company actually is called Action Edge Business Coaching. I'm a business coach by trade currently.
When
So
Harold
looking forward to it. Thanks for having me.
when Harold introduced us, I've had a coach personally, a one-on-one type coach, since January of 2006, almost consistently for my business and frequently for my interest in endurance sport as well. So I am a big fan of coaching. So I'd like to get into that.
Yeah. One of
What
the
is
things I always say is, if Connor McDavid needs a coach who's, arguably the best hockey player in the world, and he has a team of coaches, right? He has a head coach for the team. He has a personal fitness coach. He has a hockey skills coach. He has a life coach. I mean, he has all these different kinds of coaches, as many athletes do. So my question is to a lot of the business owners that I meet is, what makes you think that you don't coach, right? Connor McDavid needs a coach. That's what got him there. So if people are interested in becoming, a high achieving business owner, then coaching can certainly get you there.
Certainly, I know that in the real estate industry, every top producer, highly productive agent has some sort of coach. Well, that's most of my experience anyway. And the few that I've met that don't, I'm just like blown away with their brains versus the rest of us that are able to do great things and great numbers and without a coach. Tell me, Ellen, how did you happen to come to live in Calgary?
I was actually transferred here through a corporation I was working for. And so I just thought it was a great opportunity. My wife works in the film industry, so she thought it might be a great opportunity for her to come down here. And things generally are a little more active in Calgary than in Edmonton. So I was transferred here from Edmonton. I grew up in it.
Okay, and so how many years have you been?
5 years now.
Oh, 5 years. So you came to Calgary, 2016-ish, I guess. Not a
Yes.
great time to move to Calgary, I think. And your wife coming from the film industry, I mean, in Edmonton, I was, when you said that, I was hoping she wasn't coming from Vancouver or Toronto or Los Angeles, because Calgary wouldn't be the place. But I suppose it's a step up from Edmonton, is it?
Well, we met in Vancouver. I actually lived in Vancouver for about 15 years. She was working in the business in Vancouver. We had a family. My family was all still in Edmonton, so we decided to move to Edmonton, and we spent some time there. So yeah, now we're here. He's a little bit older. He's 11 now, so he's a little bit older, a little
Oh,
more
that's great.
self-reliant.
That's great. When you moved to Calgary in 2016, did you buy a home? Are you?
Yeah, we bought a home in the Northeast. We didn't know the city that well. We really tried to find something that we didn't want to break the bank. We didn't know what Calgary was going to hold for us long term, so we really picked a fixer upper in the Northeast, and it's done us really well. It's got great bones. Just need a lot of cosmetic work. So that's we're working our way through that.
What community in the Northeast?
Taradale.
Oh, wow, good for you. And so you bought in Taradale in 2016. What's happened in your sort of mindset on that property since 2016 as your property assessments are coming in? Like, I assume, did it go down in value in well, 2017 was a better year, probably went up in value, and then 2018, 19, 20, or do you just not watch those things because it's your home, you're living there, and you have no intentions of moving? Like
No,
what's happened to you in your mindset? I
you
assume
know,
it's
we're
worth more
watching it.
today. I assume it's worth like more today than it was in 2016. Is it?
It's actually worth about the same as
Mm-hmm.
we bought it, because it did go down the last couple of years. I think it's about the same now, maybe a touch more. But one of the things that we lack is a garage, so
Mm-hmm.
that's something that I'm planning to build here in the next year or so.
Do you know, like, do you ever think like recently in 2016, well, what if I just had a bought in Victoria? Does that like, do you ever beat yourself up on that?
Well, we had a condo in Vancouver when we first met. So when we sold our condo, we actually made quite a bit of money. We were very pleased with ourselves. We basically traded in our condo for a house in St. Albert. And so when we moved down here, we really kind of did a cross. We actually probably took a half a step down, but like I said, we just wanted to make sure that we had some opportunity. In my head, I thought, great, this thing will become worth a lot more in a short period of time, especially if we put the work into it. So
Mhm.
that was really my thought process around that. So
And you were wrong.
I think long term it will pay off. Maybe in the short term, not so much. It's interesting. Nobody knew the pandemic was coming. Nobody could have seen that coming. So it's absolutely probably thrown a wrench in a lot of people's plans. But at the same time, it's a comfortable home, so we're happy here.
And in my podcast, like with frequent guests, I like to dig a little deep into sort of real estate decisions. And, really, I kind of think there's a lot of luck involved or bad luck. And, as a young realtor, sort of investor, I used to think that I was, maybe able to, make smart decisions around location, because they say in real estate, location, location, location. But it's really my experience in Calgary since 2003. It's timing, timing, timing.
Yeah.
And it's hard to time it. The older I get, the more I believe that, the older I get and I speak to with colleagues like yourself and business owners and, just others that have either, well, for the most part, become wealthy. They acknowledge a fair amount of luck and timing in the decisions. So anyway, this just a fun. I find that kind of a fun
Well,
exploration.
I'll tell you a story kind of right around that same thought process. Is when we bought our condo in Vancouver, it was the time that the leaky condo crisis was happening.
Yeah.
And we definitely benefited from somebody else's bad fortune because there was a small family. He was a pilot, and they bought this condo, and then the assessment came, right? And
Yeah.
assessment just kept getting bigger and bigger. I think in the end they ended up putting almost $100,000 extra into the place.
Mhm.
um, it was a very large complex. And then they gave birth to another child in the meantime. And it was a 2-bedroom condo, it was 800 square feet. And, they were bursting at the seams. So pretty much the second that they put the thing in the market, they'd moved, they bought another property. And so they just wanted to get rid of the thing. So we basically bought the condo for the same price they paid for it about 6 years earlier, which at the time was quite a savings. It was quite a discount. So when we
Wow.
went to sell it 3 years later, we did make a considerable amount of money. So talking about luck, that was just sheer dumb luck for us.
Yeah. No, that's great. Interesting. And so, what do you love most about Calgary?
We really like Calgary. We like the way it's laid out, right?
Mhm.
So coming from a big city in Vancouver, having lived there for a long time, traffic's really difficult in Calgary. Edmonton's funny. I don't really know, who's involved in city planning there, but there's certainly some lack of forethought there. But I find that the freeway system in Calgary is makes much more sense. It's a little easier to get around the city, which I really do enjoy. The downtown core is, obviously not right now, not great, but certainly when we moved here and earlier in the teens when we were visiting, it's a vibrant place to be, and it's interesting, and there's lots going on, and it's still got a vibrant arts culture. Being close to the mountains, there's a lot of great things about Calgary.
Hmm. Cool. And what is it? What strikes you about Calgary? I mean, anything else to add to that? Like, well, in terms of maybe the freeways, but is there anything else that like, kind of just strikes you about maybe mindset or something of Calgary?
Well, I do find, well, So I'm just going to go back to the environment there for before I get into that, because I mean, having come from Vancouver, where there's Stanley Park and that, I really like that Bow River Valley walk
Mhm.
that's through downtown. I mean, it's a beautiful little area, and you got Kensington, and there's some kind of cool artsy and restaurants and things there. So I mean, there's lots of cool things to do here, and there is a lot of park space in Calgary. But the frame of mind, it's funny because it's kind of in the middle between Edmonton and Vancouver. Vancouver's got to, gotta, we're the big guys on the block and we don't really care about anybody else. And Edmonton, on the other hand, is extremely friendly and kind of really blue collar and easy to talk to people there. And Calgary
Mhm.
lies somewhere in the middle. So you have a faction of the population that are really white collar and, a lot of head offices for a long time, oil industry and such. And then you still, you've got some people who are on the working class side as well. So it's a really nice mix of people here in Calgary.
You were born in Alberta, in Edmonton, is that right?
Correct.
And so what about the boom bust economy of our province? Like, any thoughts? Like, what was your experience of that? And was your own family affected, like in the early 80s? Or, can you just talk to us a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's funny. My dad was a very conservative man, and he taught at NATE, Northern Alberta Institute of Technology. He taught
Mhm.
building construction, and he was, he didn't like spending money, but he and a couple of friends of his got together and they bought a bunch of properties in the early 80s. And it took them a long time to
In the early 80s, like prior to
finally.
82 with the crash?
Yeah, no, it was like 81 and a half, right?
Oh,
And so
no.
they took a long time to really wrap their heads around it. And then they decided to take the plunge. And then 6 months later, the economy died. So he spent the next 3 or 4 years, working through these properties. And a couple of the guys that he was in there with kind of bailed on him. And he was just kind of waiting for the time that he could kind of make his money back. And then he got out. So it's fun. It's funny. You talk about that boomer bust thing, and we've seen a bunch of them. It's nice to see that the government is now at least attempting to diversify the economy a little bit. We're
Mhm.
seeing a lot more tech happening here in Calgary and in Edmonton. So I mean, it's a pleasure to see that. That I believe. Now I don't want to make an enemy out of anybody, but I think fossil fuels are a dying industry on some level. It doesn't mean that they're going to end tomorrow, but the question is, what are we doing to counteract that? So there are a lot of people out there who are working towards that. So that's great. And the green economy, of course, in my opinion, is gonna really take off here.
Wonderful. Just can't help myself getting back to 1982. So what did your dad like? Was he able to sell before the crash of 82? No, he
Oh,
was
no,
into
no, that's when he got in.
he got in just before the
Like
crash.
6 months before the crash. And
Did he
then
give
so
the keys back to the bank? What he had to.
no,
He held
he
on
toughed it out for
till
3 or 4
when?
years.
Just three or
And
4 years? Yeah.
yeah, yeah, he toughed it out. And he was the maintenance guy for the most part. So he used to get calls in the middle of the night, our water heater burst or whatever, or my doorbell doesn't work. So he just, trudge off the next day and go and fix it. And he did that for 3 or 4 years. And finally they sold one property kind of at a time, and they finally divested themselves of that whole thing within 4 years or so.
Wow. And you remember that at the time where I'm guessing you were like somewhere between 9 years old and 15 at the time, like around the
Yeah.
crash.
Really
Yeah.
means
Was it a tough time for your family, or did your dad held his instruction job at NATE and you guys
Oh
probably
yeah.
weren't that affected, I guess.
No, yeah, he was still working. So, I mean,
I
it,
see.
it was all happening in the background. I think that this was affecting his retirement more than anything else,
Right, right. I see. Yeah. So he
and
wasn't like,
his time.
because of it, he didn't retire super rich. He just like, there was no change except a lot more work on evenings and weekends, it sounds like,
Yes,
managing properties.
I think so. And I think at the end of the day, he lost a little bit of money, but obviously wasn't earth shattering for him. So,
And so, Alan, you've come from a career in I believe you told me the sort of the maybe I want to think of it as systems or the grocery industry, and recently launched your own business, Action Edge Business Coaching. Am I right there? Tell us a little bit about your career up till
yeah.
now.
Well, I've been working in food service for about 24 years. I've worked in the film industry as well. And I did some movie catering in Vancouver when I was there. Worked on the cruise, where, there's a real hierarchy, there's a real system to how things work. Became a chef, in kitchens, of course, things don't work unless everyone's kind of doing their bit and doing their job. And so systems became really important to me. Systems and training, culture, building teams, really understanding what makes businesses tick. And I think a lot of people in the trades would be able to relate to that. If there has to be, if you, as soon as you get a team of people all kind of working towards a common goal, there has to be a system for it to work. It's the same in business. Yeah, I worked my way up to become an executive chef, where, that's where I really started to learn about finances and how finances work and budgeting and all those things. When I was doing my apprenticeship, I was working for an independent restaurant, and the chef told me at that time, he says, when I'm done with you, you're going to be as smart as a lawyer. And at the time I was really impressed by that. But it's true, and I would argue that, every business needs a little more food service, because there
Mm.
are so many things. It's very intense environment, and there's just so many things that need to happen for a food service organization to truly be successful. And I think if every business sort of understood some of those things a little bit better, we'd all be a little bit better off.
Wow, that's great. And so Action Edge Business Coaching, what is it that, like, who's your ideal client? What is it? And how do you help, your clients?
Well, first of all, it's not my business particularly. I partnered with Action Edge. They've been around for 14 years
Okay.
here in Calgary, and they actually have been helping thousands of business owners throughout Alberta into BC. And we are talking about perhaps expanding throughout Alberta. So they're a very large organization. They're actually number one in the world, and I'm actually a top 25 coach in the world. So it's a pretty cool thing to be happening
I
here.
didn't even know.
Now, having said that, the ideal client for me is somebody who is truly committed to success and to their own personal development, and to has what we call a growth mindset. I'm sure that's not a new term for most people, and really on the track for making their life and their business better, right? And our big tagline is we want to build a business that works without you. So a lot of the time business owners get into business believing that they're going to have all this freedom and this money, and they find out that it sucks their, energy and their focus, and they're really not making that much money. So, we work with a framework that really helps business owners understand their business better. We mentor them, and we help them grow using a pretty solid framework to create a business that works without them. Sometimes they want to stay in the business, sometimes they don't.
Wonderful. And so, Alan, I guess, I'm looking at our time here. We want to be conscious of our listeners' time. So what is I guess, a couple of questions. What is the best way for people to reach out to you to explore more or find you? I guess, are you on Instagram? And if you had a billboard, Alan, on the way to the airport or on the way to the mountains or on the way down to Turner Valley, what would the billboard say?
The billboard for me would say, I help business owners achieve their best life and their vision. So that's my thing personally.
I'm writing this down. I help business owners achieve their best life and vision.
That's right.
Oh, nice. I like it.
And that encompasses so many things, because one of the first things I do when I start working with businesses is, what's your 5-year plan? Where do you want your business to be in 5? And moreover, where do you want to be in 5 years? So once you kind of get a sense of where you want to be in 5 years and how much money you want to be making or what your lifestyle looks like, then you can start to look at your business and say, what does my business need to be? Or what does it need to look like in order to provide me with that lifestyle?
Mhm.
Right. And that's the start. So then, like an Olympic athlete who says, in 4 years, I want to be at the Olympics, and they work backwards. Well, I have to run this race, this race, this race, this race. And I have to achieve all these things in order to get to the Olympics, in order to qualify. So it's the same for us, for business owners. If that's the business size or what the business needs to look like in order for you to have the lifestyle you want, let's reverse engineer it, and then we can start building towards it.
Fantastic.
So you can get a hold of me at actionedgebusinesscoaching.com is our website.
Mm-hmm.
And you can get a hold of me at Alan Grant at actionedgebusinesscoaching.com. I'm not on Instagram because I always tell people, pick 2 things that you're really going to be committed to. So for me, it's Facebook and LinkedIn.
Nice. Very good. And we will supply links in the show notes to those 2.
Perfect.
Alan, thank you so much for coming on and being a guest on the show. It was really great to chat, learn more about you and your life in Calgary and Action Edge Business Coaching, your involvement there and your passion for helping others.
Yeah, thank you very much. I appreciate the time and I appreciate the opportunity. So, and look forward to listening to more of these podcasts as time goes on here, and learning more about other Calgary citizens.
Awesome. And this is Brian Howard and Alan Grant out. Well, folks, that wraps up another edition of Calgary Living, Real Estate and Lifestyle. I'm your host. My name is Brian Howard, and I'm wondering, who do you know who needs to be on the show? You can reach out to me. You can find me on Insta, Calgary_living. You can Google me, Brian Howard, or send me an email, Brian, that's spelled funny, BRYON, at thehowardteam.net. Thank you so much for tuning in and spending some of your time with me.